Now, anyone who thought the Democrats' losses on Tuesday would humble them and cause a little self-reflection, you were badly mistaken. If anything, they're now going for broke on woke, or they want us to be woke and go broke. Democrats know full well that they're going to lose huge in the midterms in 2022, so they need to hurry down the socialism road. This requires that the Biden administration and Democrats in Congress spend trillions of dollars we can't afford to spend to amass more control over every aspect of American life.
America is back, whether it comes to fighting the pandemic of COVID, whether it's saving the planet from the climate crisis, whether it's enormous success with the global minimum tax. COVID, it begins and ends everything we do.
And today we see how brazen their power grab really is. With new mandates on American employers, Biden is turning the screws on 100 million workers. Now, using an emergency directive under OSHA, the administration's pandemic police is forcing about 2/3 of the country's workforce to choose between supporting their families and taking a vaccine that they may not want and in many cases do not need. Now, whether you're vaxxed or not vaxxed, this should disturb you greatly. Biden's actions are plainly unconstitutional and illegal. If we submit to his rule, we will have arrived at a point of no return. But there is some good news. A former high-ranking Trump official told me today that the Biden mandate is unlikely to survive legal challenges for a variety of reasons. First, these emergency moves rarely hold up under court scrutiny. For one, there is no comment period for the public input. Second, Biden is clearly trying to regulate employees' choices by threatening their employers. Now, that becomes very obvious when you read what's actually in the OSHA rule. It doesn't require companies to pay for any of the costs associated with testing, nor does it require them to even offer testing at all. So the unvaxxed will also be forced to pay for this and then masked up at work. So you'll know who the unvaxxed are. You got to point out who the unwashed people, the unvaxxed people are. On the other hand, OSHA's rule requires that companies give employees paid time off to get vaccinated and paid time for sick leave if they get any nasty side effects. Oh, and non-compliant businesses face fines of up to $14,000 per violation. Of course, that's unless Democrats pass the Build Back Better bill, which allows OSHA to impose fines of up to $700,000. Now, what's also curious in this OSHA mandate, it has a start date of January 4th, but it has no end date. In other words, submit now, and you could be facing boosters and masks forever. Biden is simply using OSHA to advance his own public health agenda rather than permitting it to fulfill its statutory authority and address actual hazards in the workplace. That's a big no-no. Now, we all know his real motive. Biden's shown nearly as much hostility to unvaxxed Americans than, well, pretty much as he has to the Taliban.
Freedom. I have the freedom to kill you with my COVID. We're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers. We cannot let unvaccinated do this progress, undo it, turn it back.
If he was really worried about COVID, Biden, he'd shut down the border. Yet they adamantly refuse to do this, and they're encouraging the spread of COVID by releasing more than, about 1 million untested and unvaxxed illegals into the United States. Think about that for a moment. The fact is, employers already complain that they can't get workers. We've paid people for too long to stay out of the workplace. And it's not just in retail and restaurants. No. Hospitals and trucking companies were already losing employees before the vaccine mandate started kicking in the States. Look at the mess they've created in New York. The economy is being held back there because of their crazy policies. And you've seen it, I've seen it. Service everywhere is being compromised. And now our health and our safety will be as well. Thank you, Joe Biden. So because of this mandate, the worker shortage, the related supply chain problem issue, and inflation will all get worse. But the White House will not tell you that very inconvenient truth.
How did concerns about the supply chain, the possibility of workers maybe quitting because of these mandates play into that decision and that timing?
So, I mean, if you're asking, like, if we think the rules impact supply chain, the answer is no. We don't think that it will. First of all, vaccine requirements work. We have talked about that.
Coercion works, in other words. Threats work. Now, if we had an honest press corps, they'd be hammering the Biden administration with nonstop questions about this overreach day in and day out. Instead, in typical fashion, they're all kind of giddy at the prospect of punishing their fellow Americans.
Vaccine mandates among city employees, all frontline workers, and the numbers go down. I just wish that people could look at the science.
What you're hearing is experts who've been doing this all their lives, decades and decades, certainly in the case of Dr. Fauci and government, telling you what they've found from the data, that it works.
I wish the deadline from the federal government were a little earlier, but I'll take January 4th. It's better than nothing.
The Democrats' response to losing on Tuesday is to make work even less attractive for millions of Americans, to force millions more to choose between their conscience and putting food on the table, and to turn employers into the COVID police force of America. They know Americans hate these policies, but they do not care. Why won't the Biden administration let this go? Hospitalizations are way down. Tens of millions of people already have natural immunity. And Fauci knows that it gives durable and broad-based immunity to those previously exposed. The red states leading the economic recovery from COVID lockdowns are stepping up, though, to defend this new assault on our freedoms. Among the states suing to overturn the mandate are Texas, Missouri, Ohio, and Florida.
We started with 15 days to slow the spread, and now it's gone to get jabbed or lose your job. And this is 500 pages of a government of a bureaucracy, a government that is being run by executive edict, not in accordance with the typical constitutional processes. And the state of Florida is going to respond, and we will combat the OSHA rule.
From the beginning, the left never saw COVID as a public health crisis. For them, it was always a political opportunity to remake America, to put more people on the dole, to limit our freedoms, to push us toward the socialist order they've always wanted. They hate this country. They hate the people of this country, and they will seize any opportunity to punish us. Polls aren't going to stop them. Close losses won't stop them. They must be beaten over and over again until they finally give up. The losses began on Tuesday, and more are on the way next year. But in the meantime, we will have to continue resisting and urge all elected officials, including any Democrats who want to pass themselves off as so-called moderates, to join us. And that's the angle.